Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host today, Samantha Studebaker Carl, and today we're talking about the book, or we're going to continue reading the book, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And we are in the hard copy on page 109 with the part titled The Tree That Is Our Life. And Catherine's going to read some of that for us, and then we'll discuss it. Before we get going doing that, I want to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves. And go ahead and jump on out, guys.
Hey,
Lori Evans in Denver.
Good morning, Jason in Tampa Bay. Looking forward to the reading today. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Let's see here.
You're really low. Maybe it's just me.
Turning on my mic. There we go.
That's better.
Yeah, great to be here. Happy weekend, everyone. Looking forward to the reading.
Good morning. It's Catherine Clement. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Awesome. All right. I will start The Tree That Is Our Life. 5 minutes later, Nora was back in the hotel's vast conference room. At least 1,000 people were watching the first speaker conclude her presentation, the author of Zero to Hero, the book Dan had beside his bed in another life. But Nora wasn't really listening as she sat in her reserved seat in the front row. She was too upset about her mother, too nervous about the speech, so she just picked up the odd word or phrase that floated into her mind like croutons and minestrone. Little known fact. Ambition. What you may be surprised to hear is that if I can do it, hard knocks. It was hard to breathe in this room. It smelled of musky perfume and new carpet. She tried to stay calm. Leaning into her brother, she whispered, I don't think I can do this. What? I think I'm having a panic attack. He looked at her, smiling, but with a toughness in his eyes she remembered from a different life, when she'd had a panic attack before one of their early gigs with the Labyrinths at a pub in Bedford. You'll be fine. I don't know if I can do this. I've gone blank. You're overthinking it. I have anxiety. I have no other type of thinking available. Come on, don't let us down. Don't let us down. I got to figure out how to turn the page on my laptop. Hold on. But wait a minute. Did it go too far? Sorry. New way of navigating today. Okay. But she tried to think of music. Thinking of music had always calmed her down. A tune came to her. She was slightly embarrassed, even within herself, to realize the song in her head was Beautiful Sky, a happy, hopeful song that she hadn't sung in a long time. The sky grows dark, the black over blue, yet the stars still dare to shine for. But then the person Nora was sitting next to, a smartly dressed businesswoman in her 50s and the source of the musky perfume smell, leaned in and whispered, I'm so sorry about what happened to you. You know, the stuff in Portugal. What stuff? The woman's reply was drowned out as the audience erupted into applause at that moment. What? She asked again, but it was too late. Nora was being beckoned towards the stage, and her brother was elbowing her. Her brother's voice bellowing almost. They want you. Off you go. She headed tentatively towards the lectern on the stage, towards her own huge face smiling out triumphantly, golden medal around her neck projected on the screen behind her. She had always hated being watched. Hello, she said nervously into the microphone. It is very nice to be here today. 1,000 or so faces stared, waiting. She had never spoken to so many people simultaneously. Even when she had been in the labyrinths, they had never played a gig for more than 100 people. And back then, she kept the talking between the songs as minimal as possible. Working at string theory, although she was perfectly okay talking with customers, she rarely spoke up in staff meetings, even though there had never been more than 5 people in the room. Back at university, while Izzy always breezed through presentations, Nora would worry about them for weeks in advance. Joe and Rory were staring at her with baffled expressions. The Nora she had seen in the TED Talk was not this Nora, and she doubted she would ever become that person, not without having done all that she had done. Hello, my name is Nora Seed. She hadn't meant it to be funny, but the whole room laughed at this. There had clearly been no need to introduce herself. Life is strange, she said, how we live it all at once in a straight line, but really that's not the whole picture, because life isn't simply made of things we do, but the things we don't do too. And every moment of our life is a kind of turning. Still nothing. Think about it. Think about how we start off as this set thing, like the seed of a tree planted in the ground. And then we grow, and at first we are a trunk. Absolutely nothing. But then the tree that is our life, develops branches. And think of all those branches departing from the trunk at different heights. And think of all those branches branching off again, heading in often opposing directions. Think of those branches becoming other branches and those becoming twigs. And think of the end of each of those twigs, all in different places, having started from the same one. A life is like that, but on a bigger scale. New branches are formed every second of every day. And from our perspective, from everyone's perspective, it feels like a continuum. Each twig has traveled only one journey, but there are still other twigs and other todays, other lives that would have been different if you'd taken different directions earlier in your life. This is a tree of life. Lots of religions and mythologies have talked about the tree of life. It's there in Buddhism, Judaism, and Christianity. Lots of philosophers and writers have talked about tree metaphors too. For Sylvia Plath, existence was a fig tree, and each possible life she could live, the happily married one, the successful poet one, was this sweet, juicy fig. But she couldn't get to taste the sweet, juicy figs, and so they just rotted right in front of her. It can drive you insane, thinking of all the other lives we don't live. For instance, in most of my lives, I am not standing at this podium talking to you about success. In most lives, I am not an Olympic gold medalist. She remembered something Mrs. Elm had told her in the Midnight Library. You see, doing one thing differently is very often the same as doing everything differently. Actions can't be reversed within a lifetime, however much we try. People were listening now. They clearly needed a Mrs. Elm in their lives. The only way to learn is to live. And she went on in this manner for another 20 minutes, remembering as much as possible of what Mrs. Elm had told her. And then she looked down at her hands, glowing white from the light of the lectern. As she absorbed the sight of a raised, thin, pink line of flesh, she knew the scar was self-inflicted, and it put her off her flow, or rather, put her into a new one. And the thing is, the thing is, what we consider to be the most successful route for us to take actually isn't. Because too often our view of success is about some external bullshit idea of achievement, an Olympic medal, the ideal husband, a good salary. And we have all these metrics that we try and reach, when really success isn't something you measure, and life isn't a race you can win. It's all bollocks, actually. The audience definitely looked uncomfortable now. Clearly, this was not the speech they were expecting. She scanned the crowd and saw a single face smiling up at her. It took a second, given the fact that he was smartly dressed in a blue cotton shirt and with hair far shorter than it was in his Bedford life, for her to realize it was Robbie. This Robbie looked friendly, but she couldn't shake the knowledge of the other Robbie, the one who had stormed out of the newsagents, sulking about not being able to afford a magazine and blaming her for it. You see, I know that you were expecting my TED Talk on the path to success. The truth is that success is a delusion. It's all a delusion. I mean, yes, there are things we can overcome. For instance, I am someone who gets stage fright, and yet here I am on a stage. Look at me, on a stage. And someone told me recently, they told me that my problem isn't actually stage fright. My problem is life fright. And you know what? They're fucking right. Because life is frightening, and it is frightening for a reason. And the reason is that it doesn't matter which branch of life we get to live. We are always the same rotten tree. I wanted to be many things in my life, all kinds of things. But if your life is rotten, it will be rotten no matter what you do. The damp rots the whole useless thing. Joe was desperately slicing his hand in the air around his neck, making a cut it gesture. Anyway, just be kind and just be kind. I have a feeling I'm about to go, so I would just like to say, I love my brother Joe. I love you, brother, and I love everyone in this room, and it was very nice to be here. And the moment she had said it was nice to be there was also the moment she wasn't there at all. Do you want to stop?
I don't know if we can keep going or we can stop
What does
talking.
that-
What do you
What
think,
does that
Jason?
mean?
Hmm?
When, well, the moment she wasn't there, what does that mean that she wasn't there?
I think she went back to the Midnight Library.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Read on if you like. If you don't, there's plenty to speak about, I think.
Let me see how long this chapter is. Oh, it's not too long. I can read another one. Okay. System error. She arrived back in the Midnight Library, but this time she was a little away from the bookshelves. This was the loosely defined office area she had glimpsed earlier in one of the broader corridors. The desk was covered with administrative trays barely containing scattered piles of papers and boxes and the computer. The computer was a really old-fashioned looking cream-colored boxy one on the desk by the papers, the kind that Mrs. Elm would once have had in her school library. She was at the keyboard now, typing with urgency, staring at the monitor as Nora stood behind her. The lights above, the same bare light bulbs hanging down from wires, were flickering wildly. My dad was alive because of me, but he'd also had an affair, and my mom died earlier, and I got on with my brother because I had never let him down, but he was still the same brother, really, and he was only really okay with me in that life because I was helping him make money, and it wasn't the Olympic dream I imagined. It was the same me, and something had happened in Portugal. I'd probably tried to kill myself or something, and are there any lives at all, or is it just the furnishings that change? But Mrs. Elm wasn't listening. Nora noticed something on the desk, an old plastic orange fountain pen, the exact same kind that Nora had once owned at school. Hello, Mrs. Elm, can you hear me? Something was wrong. The librarian's face was tight with worry. She read from the screen to herself. System error. Mrs. Elm, hello, yoo-hoo, can you see me? She tapped her shoulder. That seemed to do it. Mrs. Elm's face broke out in massive relief as she turned away from the computer. Oh, Nora, you got here. Were you expecting me not to? Did you think that life would be the one I wanted to live? She shook her head without really moving it, if that was possible. No, it's not that. It just that it looked fragile. What looked fragile? The transfer. Transfer? From the book to here. The life you chose to here. It seems there's a problem with the whole system, something beyond my immediate control, something external. You mean in my actual life? She stared back at the screen. Yes. You see, the Midnight Library only exists because you do, in your root life. So I'm dying? Mrs. Elm looked exasperated. It's a possibility. That is to say, it's a possibility that we are reaching the end of possibility. Nora thought of how good it had felt swimming in the pool, how vital and alive. And then something happened inside her, a strange feeling, pull in her stomach, physical shift, a change in her. The idea of death suddenly troubled her. At that same time, the light stopped flickering overhead and shone brightly. Mrs. Elm clapped her hands as she absorbed new information on the computer screen. Oh, it's back. That's good. The glitch is gone. We're running again. Thanks, I believe, to you. What? Well, the computer says the root cause within the host has been temporarily fixed, and you are the root cause. You are the host. She smiled. Nora blinked, and when she opened her eyes, both she and Mrs. Elm were standing in a different part of the library, between stacks of bookshelves again, standing stiffly, awkwardly, facing each other. Right. Now, settle, said Mrs. Elm before releasing a deep and meaningful exhale. She was clearly talking to herself. My mom died on different dates and different lives. I'd like a life where she's still here. Does that life exist? Mrs. Elm's attention switched to Nora. Maybe it does. Great, but you can't go there. Why not? Because this library is about your decisions. There was no choice you could have made that led to her being alive beyond yesterday. I'm sorry. A light bulb flickered above Nora's head, but the rest of the library stayed as it was. You need to think about something else, Nora. What was good about the last life? Nora nodded. Swimming. I liked swimming, but I don't think I was happy in that life. I don't know if I'm truly happy in any life. Is happiness the aim? I don't know. I suppose I want my life to mean something. I want to do something good. You once wanted to be a glaciologist, Mrs. Elm appeared to remember. Yeah. You used to talk about it. You said you were interested in the Arctic, so I suggested you become a glaciologist. I remember. I liked the sound of it straight away. My mom and dad have never liked the idea, though. Why? I don't know. They encouraged swimming. Well, Dad did, but anything that involved academic work, they were funny about. Nora felt a deep sadness down in her stomach from her arrival into life. She was considered by her parents in a different way to her brother. Other than swimming, Joe was the one expected to pursue things, she told Mrs. Elm. My mom put me off anything that could take me away. Unlike Dad, she didn't even push me to swim. But surely there must be a life where I didn't listen to my mom, and where I'm now an Arctic researcher, far away from everything with a purpose, helping the planet, researching the impact of climate change on the front line. So you want me to find that life for you? Nora sighed. She still had no idea what she wanted, but at least the Arctic Circle would be different. All right. Yes.
I think that's a good place to start.
Yep.
or end. I feel like the speech that she gave, in this last part on the tree that is our life, I mean, it just kind of shows how much she just really doesn't know what she wants, and that she keeps trying different things in her existence, and nothing's ever coming out how she's expecting. But I think it's interesting she talks about these the illusions, or the what did she call them, disillusions, the delusions that of success, and ideas that we think are supposed to be successful, of pursuing things or achievements or whatever, and then they seem empty. And that was really interesting. It's just her whole thought process on that, and kind of getting down to this underlying thing of no matter what, it seems like there's just this rot at the core, because you don't know what you want to do, or don't know how you want to be, or that's what she's kind of been struggling with. It's just that, which obviously has brought her to the point where she was ready to commit suicide, is just feeling that emptiness, or uselessness, or what's the pointness, or all of those things. And it's kind of sum that up a little bit, and all these different aspects of life in general. And I don't know, what do you guys think?
I think it's a topic that has been spinning around in my mind, and wondering what's it all for, and what's it all about, and what's the purpose, and what am I supposed to be doing, or if there is something I'm supposed to be doing, or if it's just life, it's the way things are. It's such a big dilemma. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, if I grow up.
I know, isn't that interesting how, when we're young and everybody's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I feel like so few of us really have any idea when you're young what you want to be, or, and then there's this concept that she's kind of bringing up, like it's all just a big delusion anyway. So what's the point? But you were going to say something, Jason, jump out.
Oh, well, you sort of touched on it there. Seems like she's bouncing back and forth. The main character is, in having those same sorts of questions about purpose and what matters, and trying to figure out what matters to her, and her, and what she said about the tree of life. And it struck me about how she also touched on the decisions we make having an effect on others, or having an effect on ourselves in our own lives. And it sort of seems that she's making a shift, or experiencing some dualities between whether or not she was happy, or could find happiness with herself in the decisions she made for herself, or happiness knowing that the decisions she made had an effect on others. And so there's at least those three things of how it affects us, how it affects others, or is there a bigger purpose that we fulfill in the world while we are alive? but then also that aspect of how Mrs. Elm said that she, you know, no matter what decision she made, there was only, it wouldn't have affected how long her mother lived. So, you know, she mentioned changing the furniture. Is there really a life, or is there just changing of the furniture? Is there, you know, a little bit of kind of predetermination there? You know, who's to say that any of our decisions really have much of an effect? It doesn't really change much in the grand scheme, but just our own perceptions of the reality that we live in. There's a lot there. There was a lot in what she said. So, you know, but just trying to figure out kind of what matters to us at the moment, and then just go with it. It's I guess it's why they say it's never too good to be looking back all the time, or don't spend too much time looking back. Yeah. Don't second guess yourself, kind of a thing. It does seem her perception on how her decisions had been made, and who she was trying to please, herself or her brother or father, or, but also interesting that she's noticing that some of the decisions she made were sort of made for her without her realizing it. What do you think?
It brings to mind all the things that can be changed, move the furniture around or whatever by someone else's actions, reactions, responses, circumstances, and consequences. And what it has in the big scheme of things. All the choices we make and furniture we move around.
Yeah, are we deciding to take a certain path because of the path that someone else chose, or how we would have feel that it affects others? Or like in her path where she wins the gold medal, it seemed like she was very much, it was something that she originally wanted to do, and then she was helped kind of along the way, and at least given some support to pursue it. But even that didn't mean that everything beyond that was perfect. You know, in every path from then on out, it was, you know, she still had the fear of you know, or the fright of stage fright or fear of life that she felt, and apparently just as fragile as in any other life. Brings up some good points.
Yeah, even within one life, you know, or at least for me, I know there's been a lot of times in my life where one thing wasn't working out. And so I went in a different direction, thinking everything was going to work out that way. And then it didn't work out that way. And, you know, just kind of goes along like that. You just keep trying, I guess, or I do. I try to keep trying different things to see what will work. But what is my main goal? What is my final goal? It would be happiness. So I try to be as happy as I can along the way. But happiness doesn't necessarily put food on the table either. Like you gotta have a way to bring some funds in, and those funds can make for more happiness sometimes. At least they can make for more happiness for more people if you're a generous person. So she is definitely getting more introspective as we go along, though. There's no doubt about that. I loved her analogy of the tree. I can sit and look at a tree for hours and hours and do exactly that. Look at all the different branches and think about their, if I was them and their point of view, and just, I think trees are masters to just be able to sit there. I mean, they move their branches around a little bit, but they're pretty much stuck in one spot their whole life, so that takes a lot of, I don't know what that takes. I mean, trees are tough. Think about, they're out there in all kinds of weather. It feels like 109 out there. I'm inside with the AC. Like a trees could just got to sit out there and take it, right? So they're tough.
It's like they are an anchor in all the minutia of life, and
Definitely.
they're expanding out and reaching out and providing life for the rest of us. That is just amazing creation, and is constantly expanding and changing and growing and causing more awareness and acceptance.
One thing I didn't understand was that part of the analogy of the tree where she was talking about, I think, the fig tree and the fruit rotting on the tree. We couldn't enjoy the fruit. Didn't quite get that, because it didn't seem like not being able to enjoy the fruit was a result of a mistake we made. It was just kind of like the natural order of it, and from the tree's perspective, we couldn't enjoy the fruit. Perhaps that's what was meant by it. I didn't quite understand that.
Me either. And I'll have to go back and reread that again, I think, and maybe I'll understand it better.
Seems pretty unanimous then.
I mean, maybe it's interesting because, say you're like an apple tree or a fruiting like stone fruit tree, and you get to create all these wonderful fruit that comes from you, and then you'd think that as a tree, that's like part of your purpose, and people get to come along, or animals come along, and they benefit from it, and the trees that don't get eaten fall off and maybe sprout into another tree, and so it seems like it'd be a happy thing. Yet when she was talking about the analogy, I sort of was thinking perhaps that it meant as though if you're growing, you're the tree, and you're branching off into all these different ways and having this effect throughout your life on different things. reaching out in different directions, that perhaps, you know, the just the act of growing and going through life can feel as though it's not fruitful if you aren't pursuing a particular goal and doing everything you can to achieve that goal. And then once you obtain it, it's that much sweeter.
Yeah, it looks like I went back and reread it real quickly. It says that she just imagined, you know, each possible life she could live. The happily married one, the successful poet one, was a sweet, juicy fig, but she couldn't get to taste the sweet, juicy figs. And so they just rotted right in front of her. It can drive you insane thinking of all the other lives we don't live. So for her, she had all these imagined lives, and she was kind of mourning the fact that she wasn't living all of those lives. And so I can totally, I can understand that now, because even I can do that sometimes. Like, I'll be thinking about maybe something that I did in a way that I wish I would have done it, or something, you know, and you start to get emotions over things that you have no ability to change whatsoever. And so I, you know, when I recognize that I'm doing that, I pull out of that really quickly, because that, I mean, that's how you get depressed. There's other ways to get depressed too, but I'm just saying that's one of the ways, is to keep thinking thoughts that upset you or make you sad or whatever. When you repeat those thoughts over and over, that's how you get stuck in them. Because we're basically circuits, you know, energy circuits roaming around. If you keep running the same circuit, like for me, my pain is a circuit that's like ingrained in my body electrically, you know, because it's been run over and over and over. So I have to do stuff to change that. But it's the same way with thoughts, because thoughts cause emotions, and emotions cause chemical reactions in your body. And so it's important to pay attention. That I'm glad that she's getting more introspective as we go along with how she's thinking about lives. One thing that seems to be consistent is that she isn't happy. I mean, there's been like a few times where she was happy, but she doesn't seem to be happy in the majority of her lives.
It seems like there's some aspect of it that doesn't agree with her. Maybe that's part of it, is part of the happiness should be that you get to decide how to play your hand. And then you know, it's just I can see how it could just be tough, though, if you look back and you realize, wow, I made that move because I was really more thoughtful about what someone else wanted rather than what I wanted. And so there's that that question about, you know, being selfish, you know, selfishness to you know, there's a good side of being selfishness. And you know, when we make our, you know, we have this life to live, and our decisions we make. And if you're making the decisions, at least if you're able to realize that these are decisions that you're making at the time you're making them, for the reason that you're making them, and then you say, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. Whereas you have all these other options, but this is the one I want to choose. But if instead you're looking back and going, gosh, I didn't really realize that that's why I was doing it, or you know, I guess you just chalk that up to growth and learning, and hopefully we catch ourselves earlier rather than later.
How much our choices are dependent upon altruistic reasons or self-gratification, and what impact it has on everything around us. And to recognize that we have that much power. It's just mind-blowing.
Yeah. It brings me back to the thought of purpose, and I think a big part of the purpose is that we've just by being here, we've already fulfilled the majority of our purpose, and that anything else we decide to do or anything else that we end up doing is just additional. Because we could be in a place where we're manipulated by these outside forces, by people, by circumstances, by pain, by whatever that causes us to do or not do things throughout our minutes, hours, days, and our entire life a certain way, or to some degree, or not at all. So, but there was at least some purpose fulfilled already by us just being here. You have the gears going. There's some deep stuff to think about.
Yeah, I was thinking about how, here she keeps trying on these different lives, and the one thing that she did not do in her her root life is that she didn't allow herself to be influenced by the other people that were trying to make decisions for her. I thought that was something that she hasn't realized yet, because she did go her own path. Now granted, because she felt bad for not going on the paths that everybody wanted her to, she kind of stifled her own self, but yet she didn't go on the paths they wanted her to. And so she's really on her own path in general. And I think that, after she kind of explores these different life options, she's going to realize, wait a second, I can do anything I want from this point in my root life. And I'm not stuck in something. I'm by myself. I'm not stuck having created something for someone else and then having to extricate myself from it. I have a lot of opportunity available. And, but I am curious as to what she's going to land on, what she's going to feel like is meaningful to her. Because, even right now, she's faced with this next life of potentially being a glaciologist, when that was something she'd expressed an interest in when she was younger, and she didn't do it because she didn't, her parents weren't supportive of her in that whole situation. And so I'm curious as to whether that is going to be a thing that she really had an interest in and enjoys the pursuit of. But we're only halfway through the book, so then I'm like, well, maybe not, so what's that going to mean? If we all kind of look back on our lives and we think about the different ways we've been influenced by other people, and maybe the things that we've done because we thought that was what we were supposed to do, or we've just been kind of going along because of, other people's choices and or other people's expectations or whatever, or because, like for me as a parent, a lot of my life has been guided or gone in the direction of doing things to support my children, and or my husband. And so I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because it's like I don't even know what I would have done, if I had not been influenced by all these other forces. What would I be right now? I have no clue. I haven't any thought processes in my mind that would even tell me that, but yet I can lament on some of the decisions that I made in my younger life and be like, oh, if only I'd made this decision or made that decision, but who knows what that would have come out as either. It's just no, it's interesting because in some ways it feels like you said, Jason, we fulfilled our purpose by just simply existing in this life as humans. We're here, and so that's our purpose. If we look at like nature, the only purpose of nature simply is to exist and just be, just like a tree, like, Catherine was saying, it just grows and it's there, and it just keeps being there, it keeps existing and keeps growing no matter what. It's like I have trees out in our front yard that I look at all the time, and sure that they keep growing, and they'll lose branches and they shed all of their pine needles or leaves in the in the fall, and then they just grow again. But yet at the same time I can see like one of the trees has all these spots all over its leaves, like it's got some kind of fungus or something, but it just keeps growing. It's not the healthiest tree, but it just keeps growing, it just keeps standing there, and it just kind of it makes you wonder. It's like, is the point of our existence just simply to exist, whatever that is, and and then at the same time, we want to be happy, we want to feel that feeling of happiness, right? And so if our purpose is to exist and feel happiness, then it's our thoughts that are the thing that drag us away from the happiness or cause us to be happy. And so then it still isn't the stuff that we do or the things that we act upon or don't act upon. It's still just the thoughts in our heads that make us happy or not happy. And so, because it's all in a matter of how we look at any given situation as to whether or not we will be happy about it. Because we can find reasons to not be happy about pretty much everything, and we can find reasons to be happy about pretty much everything. So, I don't know. It's a deep thought, I guess, that it's just concept that maybe everything we do every day doesn't have anything to do with whether or not we're happy. I don't know. And whether happiness is the goal. I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely has a lot to do with how we look at it, with our perceptions. Because there's a lot of different thoughts out there. It's not about just making the decision. Because if it was that easy, then just make the decision and it put us on a whole nother life path. But along with the decision becomes there's a lot of effort and focus to continue to make that same decision or decisions along that same path to get to where you want to ultimately go with that decision. And that's not necessarily always going to be easy. Most likely it won't be easy because it's a little bit upstream.
That
make,
brings a whole aspect of responsibility.
yeah, and the realization that you've got to be happy in the effort and the struggle and the obstacles, and even before you've overcome the obstacle, be happy that you've got the opportunity to meet the obstacle and have that challenge and make those efforts. And so it's not just the happiness of, oh, everything's going great and I'm going with the flow, but happiness of pushing through any obstacles or any challenges to achieve, whatever it is that you might be looking to do and or ultimately achieve. There's one saying that recently is that I've heard, and I won't try to quote the whole thing, but it has to do with it's, you might think of it a little bit more pessimistically, but it was just kind of pointing out things can be difficult, and it was about, you can look it up, I'm sure, somewhere online, about things are hard, what growing up is hard, being successful is hard, this, that, and the other is hard. Just choose your hard and go do it. And we have to kind of choose our hard and learn to be happy, with the adventure of it, I guess. It's certainly nicer if we're able to choose what it is and it's not being forced on us,
I think a lot of people go through their lives thinking that life is happening to them, and don't understand, like you said before, don't understand the power that you have to make choices, to make different things happen in your life. A lot of people get set on a certain course from whatever influences around them, and they never question moving to another state, much less another country or any, like there are people that have never even been out of their own county. Maybe they went to the county fair or something, but other than that, they've never gone anywhere else. And I mean, thank God for the internet, because now at least, you're not just limited to where you're at, but still getting out and experiencing things is far different from seeing it on the internet. And but it's, as long as they're happy in their path there, I mean, if that's what makes them feel fulfilled, or they don't question that they need to feel fulfilled. Some people don't. People have different ideas of what a life is supposed to be about. And thank goodness, because I can see other people living lives that I definitely wouldn't want any part of.
Well, it seems like we've completed our train of thought on this section. Shall we wrap it up for today?
Seems like it.
I guess so.
Okie doke. Well,
It was very introspective couple of chapters there. So I hope everybody has an awesome week. I know I'm going to. And we'll see you guys next week. Love you.
Love you too.
Yeah. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for reading, Catherine.
You're welcome.
Go out there and try to find happiness in whatever it is, and don't let the fears hold you back. Have a great week.
Yep. Everybody have a great week. And for those of you who are watching, if you've made it this far into this deep conversation, it seems to me you'd probably be interested in having a conversation with us also, which, you know, you can if you want to. All you have to do is go to Facebook and look for Mindset Mastery Collective. And actually, there'll be a link down below the video if you're watching this on YouTube, where you just click on that and jump right over into our group. And the pinned post has all the instructions for how to join us. We've got the same Zoom link every week. And so you can jump on in anytime. Where we always record these on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. And then they get posted, I don't know, a short time after that on Facebook. So with that, guys, have a great, awesome, amazing week, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.